I rushed to the hospital, frantic to see Daniel, my husband, my partner. Still, as my fingers gripped the cold door handle, a nurse stopped me, her voice trembling. "Don't go in yet." While the weight of her words hung in the air, I could only hear the sharp beat of my heart. That's when I pulled back the curtain and froze. Daniel, pale and lifeless, was there, but beside him, holding his hand like she belonged, was Mara, my best friend, the woman I trusted most. What were they hiding? We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. Evelyn's breath comes in ragged bursts, each inhale a fight against the sharp sting in her chest. Her coat is half-buttoned, the collar askew, a reflection of the chaos inside her. She pushes through the hospital doors, the sterile air prickling her skin, and her boots slap the polished linoleum floor. It feels too loud, too steady for how her heart races. She barely registers the muffled sounds of voices, the faint echo of footsteps. All she hears is the pulse in her ears, urging her forward. Her eyes flicker to the nurse's station, but she doesn't slow down. She can't. A hand shoots out, grabbing her wrist. "Mrs. Carter, wait, don't go in yet." Evelyn freezes, her fingers twitching, as if she might tear away from the nurse's grip. She looks down at the hand, feeling the cold pressure on her skin. For a moment, her mind drifts to Daniel, those quiet mornings when his touch calmed her. But this is different. This is not him. "Please, you need to wait," the nurse says. But Evelyn doesn't hear the rest. She yanks her wrist free and pushes past, unable to stop now. The curtain ahead of her is drawn, a thin sliver of light spilling through. Too bright. Too much. The room is too quiet. Then she hears it. Laughter. High-pitched, unburdened. A woman's voice. Soft, like a secret shared in the dim. Evelyn knows that laugh. Her stomach twists. Her breath hitches in her throat as she steps closer. Every muscle is tight, coiled, ready to snap. And then, the laughter stops. A breath held, a pause heavy with something unspoken. For a moment, the world seems to hold its breath with her. Without thinking, she pulls the curtain aside. Daniel lies on the bed, his once strong frame now gaunt and pale, tangled in wires and tubes. An IV drip hangs from his arm, his skin the color of ash. His eyes are open, wide but unfocused. Beside him, sitting in the chair like she belongs there, is Mara. Soft blonde curls, lips painted a bold red. But it's not her appearance that stings. It's the way Mara holds Daniel's hand, fingers tightly intertwined with his. Mara's laugh lingers in Evelyn's mind, but now it's a hollow echo, sucked into the stillness of the room. Only the rhythmic beat of Evelyn's pulse fills her ears. "I thought she'd never come," Mara says, her voice light but with a heaviness underneath. It's a whisper meant for her, meant for Daniel. The words hit Evelyn like a wave, shattering everything in its path. The world fractures. For a moment, she doesn't know if she's still standing or if the floor has dropped away from under her. The harsh light blurs, everything softening into nothing. No music, no movement. Only silence that presses in on her from all sides. She can't breathe. Her mouth goes dry. She can't look away from Daniel. His face is pale, eyes distant, but it's the emptiness there that she can't escape. He doesn't even blink, doesn't react. Mara's hand, resting so naturally in his. You're awake," Evelyn whispers, but the words feel wrong. A question with no answer. Daniel's eyes flicker for a moment, then fall back to Mara's hand. It's small, this quiet betrayal, but it stabs like 1,000 needles. Mara turns to Evelyn, her smile more a smirk now, a cold, knowing curl of her lips. She's here. Finally. She says, as if it's nothing more than a fact. You took longer than I expected. Evelyn's fingers tremble, but she doesn't move, doesn't know what to do, what to say. Her world, once so sure, crumbles. The pieces fall, scattering beyond her reach. She can't fix this. She can't take it back. The room presses in on her. She sways, her legs barely holding her up. The hollow click of her shoes on the floor rings in her ears, deafening. A voice calls from behind, but it's too late. She's already crumbling, and for a fleeting second she wonders if she might disappear entirely. Evelyn. The nurse's voice breaks through the fog, but Evelyn doesn't turn. She can't. She's not sure she can stay another second. Daniel's eyes snap to her, wide and frantic, as if he's seeing her for the first time. His face, so pale, stretches in an expression of pure panic. The kind that only comes when you've been caught in the deepest lie, and there's no way to explain yourself anymore. It's not what you think, he starts, his voice trembling. But the words are too soft. Too late. Evelyn isn't listening. She can't. Then tell me. She cuts him off, her voice an edge of ice, sharp enough to make him flinch. What part of it isn't what I think? His mouth opens, then closes. His fingers twitch against Mara's hand, like he's caught between instinct and guilt. But it doesn't matter. Nothing matters anymore. The room feels like it's shrinking around her, a pressure in her chest that has nothing to do with the sterile air or the machines beeping in the background. His words are a fog that she can't find her way through. I'm not... Evelyn, you don't understand. He stammers, but Evelyn isn't waiting for him to finish. She doesn't care about the excuse that might follow. She doesn't care about any explanation. There is no explanation. Mara watches her, a cold, calculated smile curling her lips, as if she's the one who holds all the cards now. She doesn't even flinch. The nurse, Tessa, steps forward hesitantly, a hand raised, as if to shield them, but she knows there's no way to stop this. She knows the storm is already here. I'm sorry, Tessa says quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know how else to warn you. Evelyn barely registers the apology. She doesn't turn to face Tessa. Her eyes never leave Daniel or Mara, whose gaze feels like a branding iron on her skin. She's not sure how much longer she can stand in this room, in this place, surrounded by lies and betrayal that hang in the air like smoke. Without another word, Evelyn turns on her heel, the sharp clack of her boots against the floor sounding too loud in the silence that follows. Every step feels like a mile as she walks out of the room, her body trembling from the weight of everything she's just seen. She can't breathe. As she steps into the hallway, the fluorescent lights above buzz with a hollow hum, the sound gnawing at her nerves. She doesn't look back. She can't. Not when she feels like she might shatter into 1,000 pieces if she does. Her legs are unsteady, her knees threatening to buckle beneath her, but she pushes through. She holds her head high. She has to. The elevator doors open in front of her, and she steps inside, the cool metal walls pressing against her like the weight of the world. The doors close with a soft whoosh, and she's alone. But it's the loneliest she's ever been. Her hands shake as she presses the button for the parking level, the tremors so violent she's afraid the button might break beneath her fingers. The elevator descends, the numbers lighting up one by one. When the doors open again, she stumbles out into the parking lot, the air outside cool and biting against her skin. She can still feel Daniel's eyes on her, still hear the quiet, desperate pleading in his voice. It's not what you think. She doesn't even make it to the car. Everything inside her turns over and she bends at the waist, her stomach lurching violently. The contents of her stomach spill onto the cold asphalt, the sound of it hitting the ground louder than she expects. She grips the hood of a nearby car for support, her fingers curling into the metal, biting down the nausea. Her throat burns, the taste of bile sharp in her mouth, but it doesn't stop. She chokes back another wave of vomit, her chest tight, her breathing shallow. Her eyes close for a second, and in the darkness behind her eyelids, the image of Daniel, pale and fragile, lying in that bed, Mara's hand in his, loops through her mind again, over and over. But when she opens her eyes, the world outside the hospital is still. The parking lot is silent, empty save for the few cars around her. And that's when it hits her. Something colder, harder than the numbness she's been walking through. She's not crying. She's not falling apart. She's done. Her jaw tightens. The disbelief has solidified into something sharper, something cold, and it cuts through the fog that's clung to her for hours. She's not the woman who stands in a hospital parking lot, empty and broken, anymore. She's the woman who walks away. She pushes off the car, standing tall now, steadying herself. Her hands are still shaking, but she holds her ground. The world feels quiet now, like she's no longer part of it. She might never go back to it. Her gaze flicks to the entrance of the hospital, and for a brief moment she considers going back inside. But the thought dies before it can take root. She turns, walking away, her feet moving with a purpose now, each step feeling more like a promise than a retreat. And she doesn't look back. Evelyn's hands shake as she pulls the framed wedding photo from the shelf, her fingers hovering over the glass like it might burn her. The image stares back at her, the smiles frozen in time, the bright eyes of the man she loved. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it's only been a few hours. The air in the room is thick with the scent of stale coffee and something colder, deeper, that she can't quite name. She places the photo on the coffee table, her breath unsteady. Her eyes trace every detail of it, the way Daniel's arm curls possessively around her waist, the way they both lean in toward the camera as if the world is theirs. That was the story they told. That was the dream they sold each other. But it's all broken now, shattered into pieces she can't put back together. A quiet buzz from her phone on the table makes her flinch. She stares at it for a long moment before reaching out. It's a notification from her social media accounts. She doesn't remember the last time she logged in. She doesn't care. But the idea of being tied to those accounts, tied to everything that connected her to the person she once was, feels suffocating. With a few quick swipes, her fingers fly over the screen, deleting every app, disconnecting every thread that binds her to that life. She doesn't need the reminders. She doesn't need the lies. The phone vibrates again. Another alert. But this time, it's from her bank. She clicks it without thinking, and then her vision sharpens, her eyes locking on the number blinking at her. Withdrawal of $120,000 from your joint account. Her breath hitches. She stares at the screen, the world falling away from her for a moment. The numbers blur before her eyes. A transaction so large, so deliberate, so calculated. She feels sick. The money was supposed to be theirs, their future. But Daniel didn't just betray her emotionally, he stole from her, from them. And in that moment, she understands something fundamental. The betrayal wasn't just in the hospital room, under the flickering lights with Mara by his side. No, this is bigger. This is a financial betrayal, a deliberate destruction of everything they built. The room tilts around her, and she places a hand on the edge of the table, steadying herself. Her heart thunders in her chest. This isn't just about a man or a woman. It's about trust, power, and the weight of what they've both done. Evelyn rises slowly, her legs feeling like lead as she crosses to the other side of the room. She grabs her purse, pulling out her phone. One number. She knows who she needs to call. No hesitation. Harriet picks up on the third ring, her voice calm and steady. the way it always is. Evelyn? What's going on? I want every account audited, Evelyn says, her voice flat, controlled. But beneath the calm is a simmering rage. Quietly, I want to know where the money's gone. Harriet's pause is brief, but it's there, a breath between words. You're not reacting, you're planning. Good. Evelyn's jaw tightens. I'm done with the lies, Harriet. I need to see the truth. The words hang in the air for a moment before Harriet speaks again, her tone shifting to one of approval. Understood. I'll take care of it. Evelyn ends the call without another word, the weight of the decision settling into her chest. It's done. There's no going back. She sets the phone down and looks at the photo again, her gaze hardening. The betrayal has changed everything. What once felt like love now feels like a trap. And Evelyn knows she can't go back to the life she once had. Her fingers curl into fists, the pulse of her heartbeat loud in her ears. She takes a deep breath, then walks toward the front door. The world is waiting. The world is still spinning. But she's no longer part of it. Not anymore. Evelyn's phone buzzes against the kitchen counter, the sound slicing through the silence of the house. Morning light cuts across the marble, glinting off a half-empty glass of water. She hasn't slept, only paced, replaying everything in her head. The betrayal, the money, the hollow sound of Daniel's voice. The phone keeps buzzing until she finally answers. Harriet? On the other end, Harriet's voice is crisp, efficient, already halfway into the report. I traced the transactions. Most were funneled through small medical suppliers. The paper trail's messy, but one name keeps surfacing, Mara Leland. She's listed as a secondary contact on several offshore transfers. Evelyn grips the edge of the counter, her knuckles whitening. Offshore? Cayman Islands, standard shell accounts. But get this, one of the receiving accounts is tied to the hospital's billing department. Specifically, to a trust registered under Mara's employee ID. For a long moment, Evelyn says nothing. Her breath catches, and then a quiet, bitter laugh escapes her lips. So the affair's been funded with our money. Harriet exhales softly, a sound somewhere between sympathy and disbelief. And her salary's a cover. The invoices were coded as patient rehabilitation costs. They used your joint account as the originating fund source. It's clean on paper. The words sink in like stones, heavy and deliberate. Evelyn's anger, once wild and chaotic, begins to sharpen. No longer a storm, but a scalpel. Every beat of her heart feels measured now, her mind cutting through the fog of hurt to something colder, more precise. Then we use their system against them, she says quietly. A pause. Then Harriet's voice, cautious but approving. You're thinking clearly. That's good. Dangerous, but good. I'm done being the woman who reacts. Evelyn's eyes move toward the window, the reflection of herself caught in the glass. Still, deliberate, unfamiliar. Now I plan. She ends the call before Harriet can respond. The house hums with stillness. She moves back to the table, Daniel's photo still lying face down where she left it. She doesn't touch it. Instead, she reaches for her laptop, powering it up. The blue glow of the screen washes over her face as she opens her inbox. A new message sits at the top, the sender hidden under an anonymous address. No subject line, no greeting. Just a single line of text. You didn't hear this from me, but check patient 0411's file. Her stomach tightens. She doesn't need to guess who sent it. Tessa, the nurse from the hospital. Evelyn's pulse quickens, and her hands hover above the keys before she moves, opening the secure portal she still has access to. Her husband's medical profile. The login prompts flicker across the screen, and she enters Daniel's patient ID from memory. The file loads, hundreds of scanned documents appearing one after another. She scrolls quickly. Discharge summaries, medication logs, physician notes. until she finds the tab marked Advanced Directives. Her throat goes dry. There it is. Do not resuscitate. DNR authorization. The cursor trembles as she clicks it open. The form fills the screen. Her eyes scan the text, and then she sees it. 2 signatures at the bottom. One from Daniel, dated a week before his collapse. The other, Mara Leland. Her breath catches. She leans closer, reading it again and again, the letters burning into her vision. Authorized by spouse or next of kin, Mara Leland. Evelyn's heart slams in her chest. Her mind races through the timeline. Daniel's hospitalization, Mara's presence, the transfers, the laughter behind that curtain. And now this. Mara hadn't just invaded her marriage. She had positioned herself legally, financially, medically, like she was erasing Evelyn's existence one document at a time. Her pulse pounds in her ears. The air in the room feels thin, unbreathable. No, she whispers, shaking her head. No, he wouldn't. But the evidence is right there, digital and damning. The hospital ID stamp at the corner, the physician's countersignature. It's official. It's real. She sits back, the sound of her own heartbeat echoing in her skull. For a long moment she stares at the screen, unblinking. The betrayal has shifted shape again. No longer emotional, no longer financial. It's existential. It's control over life itself. Her phone buzzes once more on the table, but she doesn't answer. Not yet. Her reflection in the laptop screen stares back, eyes hollow but burning. Her jaw tightens. Beneath the devastation, something else begins to stir. Resolve. Evelyn reaches for her phone, scrolling through her contacts until she finds Harriet's number again. But she doesn't call this time. Not yet. She needs to think. She needs proof. Her cursor hovers over the document. Then, with one deliberate motion, she downloads it. The file saves to her desktop with a soft ding. The sound feels like a gun cocking. She sits back, exhaling slowly, eyes fixed on the name Mara Leland glowing on the screen. The stillness in the room deepens until it feels almost electric. And then, quietly, to no one at all, she says, "You signed his death." Her reflection doesn't flinch. The hospital administrator's office smells of antiseptic and stale coffee. Evelyn stands before the polished oak desk, her fingers gripping the edge so tightly her knuckles are white. The weight of the room presses in on her, but it's the weight of the question she's about to ask that makes her pulse race. How can a mistress sign a "do not resuscitate" for my husband? The words fall from her mouth, too sharp, too clean, like glass breaking. She doesn't flinch as she says them. She doesn't blink. The administrator, a woman in her 50s, with a face too tired for her age, flinches instead. Her hands tremble ever so slightly as she adjusts her glasses, but she doesn't look up immediately. "We thought she was his wife," the administrator says quietly, her voice too calm, too practiced. "She's listed as next of kin in our records." Evelyn's stomach drops. The room tilts for a moment, spinning slightly, but she doesn't lose control. She can't afford to. "So, you thought," Evelyn repeats, each word dripping with cold fury, "that Mara Leland, who you saw with him, who was in his hospital room while he was unconscious, was his wife?" The administrator nods, a slow, apologetic motion. "Yes, the paperwork. The records indicated that." She leans forward, her tone softening, as though trying to make the situation better. "It was only when we went to execute the DNR that we realized the discrepancy, but by then, the order had already been signed." Evelyn's chest tightens. She forces a deep breath, but it doesn't fill her lungs. She feels like she's suffocating, the air too thin to hold her. Her mind races. How could this have happened? How could they let this woman step into her life so completely? "How long has this been going on?" she asks, her voice barely above a whisper, but the question slams into the room like thunder. The administrator hesitates, but only for a moment. A few weeks. We don't monitor the next of kin details unless there's a need for emergency contact or legal decisions. 3 weeks. Evelyn mutters, the words catching in her throat. 3 weeks ago, Mara had walked into their lives in a way that Evelyn never saw coming. A quiet invasion, disguised as concern, as friendship. And Daniel, her husband, had handed her the keys to his life. He'd signed everything over to her. Her phone buzzes in her pocket, but Evelyn doesn't reach for it. She doesn't need to hear it. Not right now. What did you think when a woman who isn't even family signed a life or death decision for my husband? Her words hit the administrator like a slap, raw and unfiltered. She's past the point of politeness now. She's past the point of thinking clearly. She needs answers. The administrator trails off, her eyes flickering uncomfortably. We just thought she was his wife. The words crash into Evelyn's mind, repeating over and over, and her head spins. The lie, the deception. How long had Mara been working her way into the corners of their lives? How much of their trust had Daniel handed over, without Evelyn even realizing it? And then, like a hammer falling, the next thought hits Evelyn. Harriet. She pulls her phone from her pocket, finally answering the message that's been waiting for her. Harriet, it's worse than I thought. Evelyn's voice cracks slightly, but she forces herself to stay calm. Mara signed the DNR order. She's listed as next of kin. I need to know how. I need to know why she's got that power. On the other end, Harriet doesn't pause. It's more than that. Daniel changed legal records without you knowing. He made her his power of attorney. The words hang in the air, heavy, suffocating. Evelyn's hands tremble, her pulse racing in her throat. She feels the floor beneath her shift. She's... What? Evelyn's voice barely reaches a whisper. Power of attorney, Harriet repeats. She has legal authority to make medical and financial decisions for him. He gave her that right. Evelyn's mind goes blank for a moment, her thoughts skittering like insects across the floor. She wants to scream, to rage, but she doesn't. Instead, she lets the weight of the information settle into her chest. Her breath is shallow, but steady. She's done with the wild emotions. It's time for something else, something sharper. Then I'm already dead to him on paper, Evelyn says, each word measured, cold. Not quite, Harriet replies, voice firm, practical. But you need to fix that. Now. Evelyn's eyes narrow, her jaw tightening. She stands up straighter, the quiet pulse of determination growing louder. She turns back to the administrator, who's watching her with wide, cautious eyes. Evelyn leans forward, her voice low, controlled. Let's fix that, she says, each word slicing through the tension like a blade. The administrator shifts in her chair, unsure how to respond, but Evelyn doesn't care. She's already moving forward, already planning her next steps. She knows what she has to do. She's no longer the woman in that sterile hospital room, shattered and lost. She's the woman who will take back what was stolen from her. As she steps out of the office, the phone vibrates again in her hand. A new message. But this time, she doesn't open it immediately. She tucks the phone back into her pocket, her eyes hard and focused. Whatever Mara thought she had won, whatever Daniel thought he could do, they've underestimated Evelyn. They've underestimated the power of a woman who has nothing left to lose. The battle has only just begun. Evelyn's fingers hover over the keyboard, her eyes fixed on the screen. The trust's portal is open, her gaze scanning the fields for her name, Daniel's, the joint account they once shared. It's all too familiar. The lines of numbers, the familiar addresses, the familiar promises. But now, there's a new name. Her name. Alone. Her trust. her control. She drags the cursor over the account balance, selecting the transfer option, then inputs the amount, half of what's left in their joint account. It feels like nothing, like a drop in the ocean. But this is just the beginning. The assets will all be moved. The pieces will shift silently, invisibly, until there's nothing left for Daniel to claim. She's already well ahead of him. Her phone buzzes on the counter beside her, the screen lighting up with a new message from Harriet. She doesn't open it immediately, waiting until her fingers finish clicking confirm on the transfer. Then, with a single swipe, she checks the message. We've got everything we need. It's all connected. This is bigger than we thought. We can tie this to medical fraud. Evelyn's lips tighten into a thin, cold line. She sets the phone down, her mind already moving ahead. Medical fraud. That's where this will end. That's how she'll bring everything into the light. But she isn't done. Not by a long shot. Later that afternoon, Evelyn walks into the hospital. The corridors are eerily quiet, the faint hum of fluorescent lights above her amplifying the hollow feeling in her chest. Her smile is warm, practiced, like a mask she's worn 1,000 times before. She walks past the reception, where the staff greets her with empty pleasantries, and heads straight for Daniel's room. Mara's car is parked outside. Evelyn notices it before she even enters the building. It's almost a certainty at this point. The woman is always there, always waiting in the shadows, pretending to be the one who belongs. When she enters Daniel's room, it's just as she expects. Mara is there, sitting by the bed, her fingers carefully brushing through Daniel's hair as though she's the one who's earned the right. Her smile is soft, almost maternal, a clear picture of someone pretending to care. Daniel is still unconscious, pale, the machines beeping steadily beside him. The room smells faintly of antiseptic, but the air feels thick with something far worse. It's suffocating, this pretense that Mara has built. Still sleeping, Mara says with a slight sigh as she glances up, her voice laced with a subtle pride. He's resting. We've got things under control now. Evelyn's gaze hardens, but her smile never falters. I'm sure you do, she replies, her voice warm but carrying an undercurrent of something sharp. Mara doesn't respond, but Evelyn can feel the tension in the room grow. The woman doesn't want her here, doesn't want her watching, but Evelyn isn't going anywhere. She's here for a reason, and it's not to give up her ground. After a few minutes, Mara glances at her watch and stands, brushing past Evelyn on her way out. It's a silent act of ownership, a declaration that Evelyn is no longer the one who has control. But Evelyn watches her go, her expression unreadable. As soon as Mara steps into the hall, Evelyn moves with purpose, crossing quickly to the small desk near the door where a nurse is sitting, distracted by the papers in front of her. Evelyn slips a hand into her bag, retrieving a small flash drive, something she's been planning for days now. She sets it down on the counter, her fingers brushing against the plastic as she meets the nurse's eyes. I'm just here to check on Daniel's records, Evelyn says softly, leaning in, her voice low but polite. Could I get a copy of the security footage from today? I'd like to see who's been accessing the systems. The nurse hesitates, glancing down at the desk, then at Evelyn's face. The exchange is quick, barely more than a heartbeat, but the nurse finally nods. Just a moment. Evelyn keeps her eyes on the door, her heart hammering in her chest. The footage. Mara, logging into the restricted system again. This is the evidence she needs. It doesn't take long. The nurse slides a small USB drive across the desk. Evelyn picks it up quickly, her fingers cold against the plastic. Thank you, she says, her smile wide and sincere, as if she's the one in control. The drive clicks into place in her pocket, and she exits the room with the same practiced grace. But once she's outside, once the hospital doors are behind her, her hands tremble as she pulls the drive from her pocket and looks at it. Later, when she's safely back at home, Evelyn sits down at her desk and plugs the drive into her computer. The video file opens. The timestamp reads 2:14 p.m. Mara enters the security room in a lab coat, the same smile on her face. She taps a few keys, accessing a list of files, patient records, billing codes. And then, after a brief glance at the door, she types in a series of commands. The footage is grainy, but Evelyn can see her clearly. Mara logging into restricted medical systems. The weight of it hits Evelyn all over again. This is it. This is the moment. The moment where everything Mara's built comes crashing down. She calls Harriet immediately. "We've got it," Evelyn says, voice cold, sharp. "We can tie her to the fraud. Now it's time to make her pay." And the silence that follows as Harriet processes the information is the calm before the storm. The soft glow of the computer screen illuminates Evelyn's face as she and Harriet sit together at the kitchen table, sorting through the evidence. Piles of printed emails, bank transfers, and hospital documents scatter across the surface like a blueprint for destruction. Evelyn's fingers skim through the timestamps, the figures, the names, each one a thread in the web she's about to pull tight. Harriet is calm, focused, as always, her hands moving quickly as she arranges the evidence in order. "We need to make sure the timestamps are synced with the bank transfers. These medical invoices." "There's a clear pattern," she says, her voice cool and methodical. Evelyn nods, her jaw tight. Mara wasn't just after Daniel. She was after everything. Harriet leans in, pointing to one of the files. "This is crucial. Mara accessed restricted files just days before Daniel's collapse. We'll tie it all together. Medical fraud, financial crimes, and her manipulation of your husband." Evelyn glances down at the documents, feeling the weight of everything she's about to expose. The pieces are coming together now. Each small transaction, every hidden connection, is a key. But none of this matters unless they can act fast. "We need someone on the inside," Evelyn says. "Someone who can monitor without tipping off Daniel. No more games." Harriet looks at her, her eyes narrowing with understanding. "I know a detective, Dean. He's handled similar cases before, and he owes me a favor. He'll do it quietly. Keep tabs on Mara without Daniel knowing." Evelyn's gaze hardens, her resolve sharpening. "Get him on board. We'll need surveillance, backup. We're going after Mara, and I'm not leaving any stone unturned." Harriet nods, her fingers already moving to make the call. As she dials, Evelyn's mind races through the possibilities, her thoughts ticking down the steps of the plan. A few hours later, Evelyn stands before her mirror in her bedroom, carefully adjusting the wire under her blouse. It's thin, almost imperceptible, but it's there, a silent witness to every word she's about to speak. A small device, tucked close to her skin, ready to record the truth that Daniel, in his haze of confusion, might offer her. She catches her reflection in the glass. The woman staring back at her is different, fierce, deliberate, no longer the woman who was shattered by betrayal. No, this woman is reclaiming control. Every detail matters now. The hospital looms ahead, the sterile white walls swallowing her as she steps inside. The familiar scent of antiseptic hits her as she walks past the reception, her steps measured, her focus unshakable. She knows what she has to do. Daniel's room is quiet when she enters. The soft beep of the heart monitor is the only sound filling the silence. He lies there, pale but stable, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Mara isn't here today, Evelyn notices with some satisfaction. It's just her and Daniel now. She sits by his side, the chair creaking beneath her as she takes his hand in hers. His eyes flutter open slowly, confusion clouding his gaze. The fog of anesthesia still lingers, but Evelyn doesn't flinch. "Evelyn?" Daniel's voice is hoarse, and it takes him a moment to focus on her. When he does, his eyes narrow slightly. You shouldn't have come. Evelyn's heart clenches, but she doesn't let it show. She leans in closer, her voice gentle but firm. You're right. I shouldn't have, she says, the words coming out softer than she feels. But I'm glad I did. She kisses his forehead, her lips brushing his skin just inches from the small hidden recorder. Her fingers curl around his hand as she watches him closely, gauging his response. For a moment, the room seems to hold its breath. Then Daniel shifts slightly, his voice low, barely audible. I was going to file for divorce, he admits, his words slow, each one falling with a painful weight. After the bonus hit, I thought it'd be better for both of us. Evelyn's chest tightens, the truth crashing through her. She holds his gaze, her own heart beating erratically, but she doesn't break. She can't. This is the moment she's been waiting for. She leans in even closer, her voice a whisper now. You planned to leave me. You planned it, Daniel. And you thought I wouldn't find out. Daniel's eyes flicker with something. Regret? Guilt? But it's too late. Evelyn has what she needs. He's sealed his own fate with his own words. Her fingers brush against the recorder as she sits back, a quiet sigh escaping her lips. You're not the man I thought you were, she says softly, her gaze fixed on his face. For a moment, he looks almost lost, as if he's trying to process what he's done, but Evelyn isn't interested in his remorse. Not anymore. She's already thinking ahead. As she stands up to leave, her mind is already working, planning the next steps. The detective will be in place, and with these recordings, they'll have him. They'll have both of them. But the silence in the room is oppressive, and as she walks away, she feels the weight of everything settling into place. One last piece of the puzzle. The hospital doors slam behind Evelyn, the sound echoing off the sterile white walls, the force of it reverberating in her chest like the last thread of control snapping. Her hand grips the handle, knuckles white, a flash of red-hot fury surging through her. She barely notices the startled looks of the nurses and doctors who pass by, lost in the storm of rage that has been building for days. The walk to her car feels like it takes forever, each step heavy, deliberate, but filled with the kind of tension that she can't shake off. By the time she reaches the vehicle, her breath is shallow, her pulse erratic. She yanks open the door, the cool air of the parking lot hitting her skin like a slap, but the moment the door slams shut behind her, she finally loses it. The scream is primal, raw, a guttural sound that rips from deep inside her, a release of everything she's been holding back. It echoes in the small confines of the car, bouncing off the windows and the leather seats, until there's nothing left to scream. She grips the steering wheel so hard her fingers start to ache. Her chest rises and falls in frantic, uneven breaths, the tears she's been holding back for days threatening to spill. But no, she swallows them down, pushing them away, as she forces herself to take deep, deliberate breaths. 1, 2, 3. Her mind snaps back into focus, sharp and calculated. She's done being a victim, done with the quiet agony of watching her life crumble. She is in control now. Her phone vibrates on the passenger seat, and she doesn't even have to look to know it's Harriet. The timing, always impeccable. Evelyn. Harriet's voice is steady, reassuring, cutting through the chaos of her thoughts. We're close. One mistake from them, and we nail both of them. Evelyn exhales slowly, a long, calming breath that steadies her hands on the wheel. The words from Harriet are like a balm, but the fury still simmers beneath the surface. It will not subside, not until she's finished. Not until this is over. Good, Evelyn replies, her voice low but tinged with a kind of dark satisfaction. We're almost there. Just need them to slip. Before she can hang up, another vibration. A notification. She opens her phone, eyes flicking to the screen. Mara. The photo is smug, self-satisfied. Mara standing next to Daniel's hospital bed, a smile too wide, too perfect for the circumstances. Her fingers curl delicately around Daniel's, a picture of ownership, a display of power. The caption reads, "He's in good hands." Evelyn's blood runs cold, but her fingers move faster, pulling up the screenshot. Exhibit A. She doesn't need to think about it. She saves it to the file labeled Proof of Manipulation, a cold, calculated response to the years of lies. Every detail matters. Every move Mara makes is just another link in the chain. She's not done yet. She's just getting started. "Do you see this?" Evelyn says quietly to herself, watching the smugness of the woman in the photo. "You think you're untouchable." Her phone buzzes again, this time from Detective Dean. She reads the message without hesitation. "Funds are traceable. Every transfer leads back to Mara." Evelyn's mouth twitches into a slight smile, her pulse quickening with the thrill of victory, the culmination of all her planning. They've got them. The paper trail is clear. The evidence is airtight. It's all falling into place. "This is it," she mutters to herself, barely above a whisper, but the words carry weight. It's time. She turns the key in the ignition, the engine roaring to life beneath her. Her fingers tighten on the steering wheel, her body braced for the storm that's coming. There's no more waiting, no more pretending. She's about to take everything from them. The city fades in the rearview mirror as she drives. The road ahead is dark, and yet Evelyn feels more certain than ever. The pieces are lined up, the trap set. She is the hunter now. She's the one in control. As she pulls into the parking garage, her phone rings again, but this time, she doesn't check it. Not yet. She steps out of the car, the steel door closing with a decisive thud behind her. The weight of everything that's led her here crashes down on her with every step. Inside, she stands tall in front of the elevator doors, her reflection staring back at her. Her eyes, hard and determined. She's ready. Ready for whatever comes next. She has the evidence. She has the proof. And now, she's going to make them pay. The hospital room feels too quiet, too sterile. Evelyn stands just inside the door, the faint buzz of machines filling the space. And for a moment, everything slows down. Her hands are calm, the slight tremor she'd felt only days ago now buried beneath layers of controlled anger. She steps forward, past the empty chair, past the untouched flower arrangements, until she stands at Daniel's bedside. He's awake. His eyes are clearer now, less foggy, though still shadowed by the aftermath of the drugs. The steady rise and fall of his chest is a rhythm that's almost too familiar, too fragile. But there's something about his gaze as he looks up at her. Calculating, like he's trying to piece together whether this is real, whether she's really standing here, or if it's just another haze of unconsciousness. "Evelyn," he says, his voice still rough, "you really shouldn't have come back." The words are meant to sting, to keep her away. But Evelyn's resolve hardens as she steps closer. She doesn't flinch. She never flinches now. She's come this far, and there's no turning back. "I know," she replies softly, the edge of something like forgiveness in her voice. "I shouldn't have. But I couldn't leave things like they were." Daniel relaxes slightly, sinking back into the pillows as if the weight of her words has unwound some tension in him. He starts talking, his voice low and steady now. "I thought about everything," he murmurs, his eyes avoiding hers, looking instead at the ceiling. "It wasn't easy. But after the bonus came through, after all the work I'd put in." He pauses, like he's gathering the right words, his fingers fidgeting nervously with the edge of his blanket. I changed the beneficiary. Mara, she's the one who gets it all now. Evelyn smiles faintly, the expression soft, almost apologetic, but there's something behind it. A knowing. She leans in slightly, just enough to make sure her voice sounds tender. That's sweet, she says, her words gentle. It's a real shame, though. She signed that beneficiary form under a stolen identity, didn't she? Daniel freezes. His breath catches in his throat, his eyes snapping back to hers with the sharpness of a man who's just been blindsided. His face drains of color, and for a long, awful second, Evelyn watches as the pieces click into place in his mind. What did you say? His voice cracks, the calm facade cracking like glass. I said, she repeats softly, savoring the words she's waited to say for so long, that Mara signed everything you handed her under a stolen identity. I'll bet you didn't know that, did you? His eyes search her face, confusion turning to dawning realization, then panic. His lips part as if he wants to say something, but no words come out. Before he can react, the door swings open sharply. Detective Dean enters the room, his figure filling the doorway, his expression unreadable. Behind him, a uniformed officer steps inside, holding a warrant. The tension in the air thickens instantly. Daniel Carter, Detective Dean says, his voice smooth, authoritative, cutting through the stillness. You're under arrest for financial fraud, conspiracy, and a series of other crimes involving medical records. Daniel's face goes pale, his eyes flicking from Evelyn to the detective. The realization hits him like a wave, crashing over him, and for the first time his eyes flash with fear. Wait, what? What's this about? He tries to sit up, but the officer steps forward, keeping him restrained. The detective gestures toward the officer. You can explain it all later, Mr. Carter. For now, you'll need to come with us. Daniel looks at Evelyn one last time, the horror in his eyes mixing with disbelief. The walls he'd built around himself are crumbling, and he's seeing, for the first time, how everything has unraveled. Evelyn? His voice is weak, lost. What did you do? Evelyn stands tall, her gaze steady and unwavering. Her fingers curl into fists. The tiny satisfaction of knowing that the final piece of her plan has fallen into place settles in her chest. This was never about revenge. This was about justice. I didn't do anything, Daniel, she says, her voice cool, almost detached. You did this to yourself. You and Mara. The officer steps forward to cuff Daniel, and as the cold metal clasps around his wrists, he glances once more at Evelyn. His face, pale and drawn, reflects the realization that his world, everything he thought he controlled, is now completely out of his hands. As they lead him out of the room, Evelyn watches him go, her mind already a step ahead. Then, with a deep, almost imperceptible sigh, she turns back to the hospital room. But her thoughts don't linger on Daniel. He's done. What matters now is Mara. She has one final card to play. Mara will fall too, and Evelyn will be there to watch it. The news broke fast, like wildfire. Every channel was buzzing, every headline screaming the same phrase: hospital fraud scandal, executive and administrator charged. The images flashed across the screens, Daniel's face white and haggard, his eyes filled with panic. Mara, her expression a mix of disbelief and defiance. The scandal unfolded quickly, catching everyone off guard. The city was in an uproar. Whispers filled boardrooms and living rooms alike, but Evelyn was nowhere to be seen. She watched the coverage from the quiet of her apartment, the steady hum of the television a constant reminder of everything that had changed. The small victories were sweet, but the media frenzy that followed was deafening. Every detail of the case was laid bare. The wire transfers, the falsified records, the hidden identities, Evelyn's evidence. meticulously compiled, had been released to the public through legal filings. Daniel's company cut ties with him immediately, their statements polite but telling. His reputation was in tatters. His world had come crashing down. She hadn't been mentioned much in the media. No, she was a shadow in this story. But Evelyn knew the truth. She was the storm that had torn through Daniel's life, and now, the fallout was for him to endure. A call from Harriet interrupts the silence in her apartment. "We've got a statement from Mara," Harriet says, her voice sharp, precise. "It's just gone public." Evelyn leans back in her chair, staring at the muted television screen as the image of Mara flashes across it. The woman's voice, as expected, is calm, calculated. The perfect picture of innocence, with just the slightest hint of guilt. "I didn't act alone," Mara says in her recorded statement, her lips curling with a subtle sneer. "I was coerced. I was promised the world. And now, I'll be made the scapegoat." Evelyn's lips twist into a smile, cold and knowing. The woman has no idea how close she is to being completely undone. The pieces are already in motion. Every last lie will be exposed. Before Evelyn can respond to the statement, her phone buzzes again. It's Daniel. She hesitates for only a moment before answering. His voice comes through, shaky, desperate. "Evelyn, please, I need your help. You're the only one who can fix this." The words hang in the air, a plea wrapped in helplessness. For a moment, Evelyn considers what he's asking, whether to give him the chance to save himself or let him drown in the mess he created. His voice cracks. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen. Please, you've always known me. Help me. I'm begging you." Evelyn's fingers tighten around the phone, her breath slow and steady. "You had me written off before I was gone," she says, her voice low, emotionless. "Consider this symmetry." There's a sharp silence on the other end, a pause filled with regret and a hint of disbelief. Evelyn hangs up, the finality of her decision settling deep within her chest. She knows what needs to be done. Daniel has no place in her life anymore. Not now. Not after everything. She stands up, her movements deliberate and calm as she walks toward the door. As she steps into the hallway, the sounds of the city feel muted, the chaos of the outside world fading into the background. She knows that her next move is inevitable. She doesn't need anyone's help anymore. She's done waiting. Outside, the cameras are already waiting for her, a swarm of reporters, their questions rapid fire, desperate for a soundbite. The moment she steps out, the flashes start. Blinding, relentless. The questions come at her in a tidal wave, each one trying to dig deeper, to unearth the woman behind the storm. "Evelyn, how does it feel to bring down Daniel Carter?" one asks. "What's next for you?" another presses. She smiles faintly, a slow curve of her lips that holds no warmth. Her face remains calm, unreadable. "What's next?" she repeats, the question hanging in the air. "Justice." She doesn't stop. She doesn't flinch. The crowd follows her, the buzz of the cameras and the endless flood of questions nothing but a distant hum in her mind. She's the one who has control now. The world may be watching, but Evelyn walks through it like she's the only one in the room, unstoppable. The door to the car slams shut behind her, and the city fades into the rearview mirror. She can almost taste victory. It's in the air, thick and heavy, and she knows. This is only the beginning. The courtroom is silent except for the soft shuffle of papers and the distant hum of the air conditioning. The room is packed with people, press, spectators, a few curious onlookers, but none of them matter to Evelyn. She sits in the front row, her hands resting calmly in her lap, her gaze fixed on the center of the room where the drama is unfolding. Mara is pale, her face a study of desperation, but even her attempts at control can't hide the tremor in her hands. Her lawyer sits next to her, an air of caution hanging around them like a cloud. And then there's Daniel, furious, his fists clenched at his sides, his eyes darting to Evelyn only to quickly look away. His body language says it all. He knows what's coming, but he can't quite accept it. Not yet. Harriet stands at the front, her posture straight, her tone cold and controlled as she delivers her argument. She speaks with surgical precision, cutting through the air with every word. She's not here for justice. Harriet is here for a statement. She's here to make sure there's no room left for excuses, no place for the deflections of the accused. "We have evidence," Harriet says, her voice clear and strong. "The transactions, the forged signatures, the admissions from both defendants. They didn't act under duress, they didn't act unknowingly. This was calculated, deliberate." She pauses, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. Mara Leland and Daniel Carter are both guilty of conspiring to defraud not only their employer, but also the public. Evelyn doesn't flinch. She's heard this all before, and in some way she's been waiting for this moment. It's the culmination of everything she's worked for. The prosecution hands over the video evidence. The courtroom falls into a deeper silence as the screen flickers to life. Daniel's voice fills the room, shaky but clear, confessing his plan. "I was going to leave her, once the bonus hit. I changed the beneficiary to Mara. She deserves it." The words hang in the air like an anchor, each syllable cutting deeper than the last. Evelyn watches him as the video plays, and she feels something deep in her chest, a stirring she hasn't felt before. It's not grief, it's not anger, it's release. It's the final piece falling into place. The lie has been exposed, the story told, and now the world will know the truth. The judge, an older man with a face weathered by years of hard decisions, looks between Mara and Daniel. He adjusts his glasses, scanning the papers before him. "Both of you are found guilty," he declares, his voice firm, final. "Sentencing will be deferred pending restitution and further investigation into the full scope of your crimes." Evelyn breathes out slowly, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in what feels like years. The weight of the moment hits her all at once, a flood of emotion she didn't anticipate. It's not grief, not for the man she thought she knew, not for the lies. It's a release, like letting go of a breath she didn't realize she was holding. From the back row of the courtroom, Tessa watches quietly, her expression one of quiet approval. She's seen it all, been part of it all, and now she silently acknowledges the quiet victory. Evelyn's fight, her plan, it's all come to fruition. No words are exchanged, just a subtle nod, a gesture that passes between them. Mara's eyes burn with shame, her shoulders hunched, her gaze fixed on the floor. She's been exposed, stripped bare, and there's no escaping it. No room for her usual manipulations. Evelyn watches her for a moment, then shifts her gaze to Daniel. His face is flushed with anger and frustration. His empire is crumbling, and in the silence of the courtroom, Evelyn knows. He finally realizes what he's lost. But it's not his reaction that matters now. It's her own. The weight is gone. The world feels different. Evelyn doesn't move, doesn't look away from the defendants, but for the first time in years she feels lighter, like she can finally breathe again. The gavel slams down, and the judge's voice rings through the air. "Court is adjourned." Evelyn stands, her legs steady, her steps deliberate as she walks toward the exit. The cameras are waiting. The whispers will follow her, but she doesn't care. She's free. And nothing will ever hold her back again. The aftermath was swift, like a storm clearing the skies in one violent rush. Daniel's assets were seized, his name removed from the company's board, his influence crumbling into dust. The scandal had bled out, and nothing was left for him. His reputation, carefully built over the years, was now nothing but ashes. Mara wasn't exempt either. The medical boards moved quickly to revoke her license. The same woman who had once worn her charm like armor now stood stripped of it, the weight of her manipulations catching up to her all at once. Evelyn had never imagined it would come to this. Not so quickly, not so completely. But it was happening. The world that had once belonged to Daniel and Mara was collapsing under the weight of their own deceit. Evelyn, however, was already moving forward. The auction house had been quick to advertise the lake house, a property once shared by her and Daniel. It was sold off in pieces, the remnants of their life together now up for grabs to the highest bidder. But Evelyn wasn't just any bidder. She sat quietly in the back of the room, her fingers barely brushing the papers in front of her. Her private trust had taken care of the transaction, one she'd set up quietly, without fanfare or publicity. And now, with one decisive bid, she owned the house that had once symbolized her ideal future. It was now hers to shape, hers to control. The auction had ended, the room had emptied, and the papers were signed. Evelyn walked through the front door of the lake house, the familiar scent of pine and water greeting her like an old friend. But inside, the silence was different now. It wasn't filled with the weight of memories and dreams gone wrong. It felt empty, waiting. Evelyn stood at the window, gazing out over the still lake, the water reflecting the overcast sky like a mirror. She'd never thought she would return to this place, not like this. But now, she stood here alone, breathing in the space she had reclaimed. And then, as if the weight of everything she had buried inside of her could no longer be contained, she broke. Tears fell first, silent, thick drops that streaked down her face. The sobs that followed were loud, raw. Emotion poured out in waves she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. But there was something else, too. Between the tears, there was laughter. A burst of disbelief that bubbled up from deep within her. Not from joy, but from sheer relief. The kind of relief that only comes when you've fought and bled, and now, at long last, the weight is gone. She sank to the floor, her back against the wall, her legs stretched out before her as the tears continued to fall. The room around her was still, silent. The only sound now was the soft rush of the lake outside. It felt like the beginning of something. She wasn't sure what yet, but she knew it was a beginning. As she wiped her face with the sleeve of her sweater, her eyes caught something on the table, old architectural sketches. She reached for them slowly, a smile tugging at her lips. These were the designs from before everything changed, before Daniel and Mara. They had once been her escape, her way of rebuilding the world in her image. And now, for the first time in a long while, she felt a spark of something more than just survival. It was creation, the possibility of something new. Later that week, Harriet came to visit. She stepped into the house, her heels clicking softly against the floor. Her eyes scanned the open space, taking in the light, the calm that Evelyn had found here. "You turned betrayal into blueprints," Harriet said, her voice soft with admiration, a hint of a smile at the corner of her lips. Evelyn didn't look up right away. She was still lost in the sketches, her mind running through lines and angles, the quiet hum of her thoughts filling the space. "That's how you build again," Evelyn replied, her voice steady, but with something new in it. "One design at a time." Harriet nodded, the unspoken bond between them firm and unshakable now. There were no words needed to fill the silence between them. Evelyn was on her way, her past behind her, her future wide open. As they sat together, the light from the lake filtered through the windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Evelyn allowed herself a moment of peace, of quiet triumph. Outside, the water shimmered in the fading light of day, reflecting her calm. Weeks had passed since Evelyn stepped into the lake house, each day a quiet march away from the storm that had torn through her life. The tranquility of the lake mirrored the stillness within her, a kind of peace that came not from forgiveness, but from reclaiming everything she had lost. The blueprints scattered across the table had become her map to a future built on her own terms. She had built herself up from the wreckage, piece by piece, until nothing could touch her. But then, one morning, her phone rang. It was Harriet, and there was something different in her tone. "There's something you need to know," Harriet said, the usual calm now edged with a sense of urgency. "We found something." Evelyn's pulse quickened, but she stayed still, her fingers gripping the phone, bracing herself for whatever came next. "What is it?" she asked, her voice steady. But beneath the calm, her heart raced. "It's an offshore account," Harriet continued, her words precise. "One that's tied to your name. Daniel set it up, tried to hide it under your credentials. It's over $1 million." The air went still, and Evelyn's mind flashed back to Daniel. His manipulation, his arrogance, his belief that he could control everything, even after everything had fallen apart. He hadn't just betrayed her emotionally, physically, and financially. He had tried to take her down one final time, hiding money where she couldn't reach it. $1.3 million, Harriet said, the number like a cold slap in Evelyn's face. The revelation hung in the air. Her first instinct was to act, to move, do something. But then the thought settled and she realized something. This wasn't a mistake. Daniel hadn't just hidden it from her. He had hidden it from everyone. He wanted her to never know, wanted her to remain in the dark, even now. But that was exactly what would make this final move so much sweeter. "You want to press further?" Harriet's voice broke through her thoughts, her words cautious. "You could take it to the authorities." Evelyn's lips curled into a faint smile, but there was no warmth in it. "No," she said softly, her mind already set. "Let it sit there." Harriet was silent for a moment, no doubt processing Evelyn's decision. "Let it sit there," Evelyn repeated, her voice firm now. "Let it remind him that I know, that I was watching, that I'm always watching." The silence on the other end of the phone was palpable. Then Harriet spoke again, her voice quiet but admiring. "You're not taking it. You're letting him keep it, but you're not letting him forget." Evelyn sat back, her eyes drifting to the window. Outside, the lake shimmered in the early morning light, the stillness only broken by the occasional ripple. She felt a strange satisfaction in knowing Daniel would never escape it. The money, the account, it would sit there, untouched, a silent reminder of his arrogance and his betrayal. He could never truly escape her, and that, in itself, was enough. "I'm keeping it open," Evelyn said, "but untouchable. Let him know that I'm the one who decides when it ends." Detective Dean's voice broke in, his tone steady but with a knowing edge. "He'll know you're watching." Evelyn's lips tightened into a smile, but her eyes were cold, focused. "Good. That's my DNR," she said softly. "Do not repeat." The words were a final, almost imperceptible warning, a message meant only for him. Outside, the lake reflected the sky, calm and still. It was beautiful in its quiet simplicity. And Evelyn? She was the storm that had passed through, unseen but always present. The account would remain there, silent, untouched. A reminder. For both of them. Evelyn sat at her desk, surrounded by sketches, blueprints, and a calm that felt like the world had finally stopped spinning. The weight of everything that had happened, Daniel, Mara, the betrayals, was no longer a storm she was trying to outrun. She was here now, in the quiet, at the helm of something entirely her own. She picked up her pencil, the feel of it in her hand familiar, and drew the first line on the paper with a steady, deliberate stroke. The design was bold: a women's retreat, a sanctuary. It was a place for strength, for healing, a space where women could come together, built on the foundation of what Evelyn herself had reclaimed. It wasn't just another project. It was the first real statement she'd made on her own. No compromises, no second guesses. This was her vision. The settlement money from her divorce had helped fund it. Money she had once feared. Money that had once been tied to the life Daniel had tried to steal from her. Now, that same money would become something completely different. It would create a future, one that wasn't shaped by the shadows of the past, but by the bright promise of something new, something lasting. The construction site was buzzing with activity. Workers moved in sync, digging foundations, laying beams, and setting up scaffolding. Evelyn stood in the middle of it all, arms folded, watching as the first beam was lifted into place, the steel glinting in the early morning sun. It was symbolic. This beam wasn't just a piece of metal. It was a testament to survival, to strength, to rising above the wreckage and standing tall. For Evelyn, it represented everything she had rebuilt: her career, her peace, and her power. Tessa arrived later that morning, wearing a hard hat and carrying a clipboard, her face breaking into a quiet smile when she saw Evelyn, the woman who had once been just a nurse, now here, helping to lay the groundwork for something bigger than either of them. She was starting her new life too, one that was defined by choice, not circumstance. "You're really doing it," Tessa said, her voice filled with admiration as she glanced around at the site. "Building it from the ground up." Evelyn smiled, the kind of smile that felt earned. "One step at a time." Harriet joined them a little while later, standing beside Evelyn as they watched the workers finish securing the beam. She gave a soft laugh, her eyes scanning the site with a quiet approval. "So, this is the new foundation?" Harriet asked, her voice soft but knowing. She didn't need to ask Evelyn what she meant by it. She understood the layers beneath the question. Evelyn turned to face her, her eyes bright but calm. "For women who were told to wait outside the curtain," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was a hint of something in her tone, something unshakable. Harriet nodded, her eyes reflecting the same understanding. The women who had been forgotten, ignored, or silenced, they would find a place here. They would stand together as equals, with no need to ask for permission. The sun broke through the clouds, streaming in through the gaps in the steel framework of the building. The light cut across the space, highlighting the work, the sweat, the care that had been put into the structure. It was more than just a building. It was a symbol of growth, of hope, of resilience. Evelyn stood for a moment watching the light shift, the beam now in place, strong and steady. Peace didn't whisper. It didn't ask for permission. It hummed, deep and resonant like a heartbeat. She wasn't just creating a space for others to heal, she was creating one for herself. A home built not from the ruins of her past, but from the foundation of everything she had become. Outside, the world continued, but inside, it was quiet. And Evelyn knew, without a doubt, this was just the beginning. The sound of the saw cutting through wood, the rhythmic thump of hammers, and the buzz of drills. Everything felt alive around her, each noise a reminder of progress. The structure that had once been a scattered vision on paper was taking shape, piece by piece, beam by beam. Evelyn walked the site, boots crunching on the gravel, her eyes scanning the framework of the women's retreat as it rose higher into the sky. Every day, it looked more like something real. There was purpose in the way the workers moved now, each one of them contributing to the building of something bigger than the space around them. They were laying the foundation for a future, for a new beginning, just as she had. Tessa had come to work at the site, no longer just a nurse but part of the team. She had shed the remnants of her old life and now stood with the others, carrying plans, organizing shifts, her hands steady on the clipboard. She smiled when she saw Evelyn pass, and Evelyn couldn't help but return it. Their paths had crossed before by chance, but now there was something unspoken that tied them together. Strength. Survival. "Everything's coming together," Tessa said one afternoon, her eyes following the progress of the construction. She gestured to the metal frame that was now beginning to resemble the design Evelyn had first sketched in the quiet of her new home. "What you're doing here, it's more than just a building." Evelyn's gaze followed Tessa's. It was more than a building. This was the foundation for everything they had been told they couldn't have. A place for women to heal, to reclaim power, to stand together. Harriet appeared on the edge of the site one morning, her heels clicking on the pavement as she approached, a soft wind tugging at the edges of her blazer. She'd always had a way of making everything feel just a little more polished, a little more organized. "This place is incredible," Harriet said, surveying the space around her, her eyes bright with approval. "It's everything you envisioned." Evelyn nodded but didn't say anything right away. She was lost in the space around her, watching as the walls began to take shape, the frames standing tall, ready to hold the weight of everything they were building. It felt like she was walking through her own future, the air alive with promise. "So, this is where it begins?" Harriet asked softly, her voice carrying a deeper question, one that Evelyn understood perfectly. "For women who were told to wait outside the curtain," Evelyn replied, her tone steady. The phrase had become a mantra of sorts, not just for the retreat, but for her own journey. Every setback, every betrayal had brought her here. She was done waiting, done being ignored. The sun dipped lower in the sky that evening, casting long shadows over the worksite. The steel structure gleamed in the warm light, the frame now resembling a skeleton of strength. Each piece connected, each beam a testament to what had been achieved. Evelyn stood still for a moment, the cool evening breeze ruffling her hair, and watched as the last piece of steel was put into place. The team stepped back, and a quiet cheer broke out. The first beam had been set, and it was as solid as anything she had ever done. Peace didn't whisper anymore. It wasn't a quiet, uncertain feeling anymore. It hummed now, strong and unyielding, like the very building that stood before her. She could feel it vibrating through her, through the workers, through every corner of the retreat. The world outside continued as always, busy, chaotic, unaware. But here, in the quiet hum of progress, Evelyn knew something deep in her bones. This was just the beginning, and no one could take it from her.